Alrighty.
So with the past week, I've maintained the mustache, and I've been trying to keep my inner Ted Lasso rolling through. And yeah, it's been a happier week.
I love that. I love that. I'm Dominic, by the way. I don't know if you remember that. You know, if you truly are the Ted Lasso that I do know and love, you would know that one of the quotes that we learned last week was, "You goldfish," right? Forget the last 10 seconds, right? Only remember the last 10 seconds. Now, I might be exaggerating that just a little bit, but I'm Dom. Welcome back to the Fi Guys, I guess. Alrighty.
Welcome to Fi Friday Feedback. So today, what we're going to be covering is, instead of going back and talking about the lessons that we can learn from watching Ted Lasso and how we can apply that to our financial independence journey, what I thought we'd do is go over some 13 leadership lessons that I learned from watching Ted Lasso too, because regardless if you are a leader of people, if you're a manager, a boss, a CEO, whatever you are in your company, you are a leader in some aspect. Either if that's a leader of your household, a leader of yourself, you're always going to be that, a leader of your money. So I'm thinking that if we go over some of the lessons we learned, we can think about how this skills that we learned from Ted can come into our normal life, and how we can use these skills in our leadership, because you're going to be leading someone at some point. So might as well learn the right way to lead, because there's a lot of wrong ways to lead.
You got that right. Yeah. If you can learn any, and this, my goodness, stop and let's get into this pod. Good Lord. If you can learn one thing from today's episode, that is our goal. At least one thing, right? And just because you might not be in a leadership position doesn't mean you can't benefit from what we're about to say, right? You lead yourself through life, right? You might have a younger brother, younger sister. You lead them through life, right? You guide people throughout your day, throughout your life. So I think it's always important to really work on your leadership skills, because you never know when you'll be thrust into a position of leadership.
I would agree with that. So first lesson that I learned from Ted Lasso when it comes to being a good leader is to be sincere. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that a leader should try to hide things from the troops? You know, oh no, we're going through budget cuts. We shouldn't tell them about that. You know, they'll just see every so often their friends just kind of disappear. We don't talk about it.
Listen, I think honesty is the most important thing you can ever do. And when it comes to sincerity, I think that is also one of the most important things as well. You know, you don't want to be the captain of a ship and be like, and change course and not tell the crew, right? You got to tell the crew. You got to tell the people. You got to have a well-informed team. And I think being sincere it's a fundamental of what makes a great team, 100%.
Yeah. I think it's really difficult sometimes for leaders, because if we are a leader, especially in organizations, right, we are told, if you're like a manager of a team, you're told from up on high what you're going to do. And sometimes, like as the leader, you don't agree with the command decisions. So what do? We say, like, we either go out there and we complain with them, with our team, not the right way to do that, or we lie and say that this is what we're going to do because of some other reason. Where the best thing you can do is just be sincere. Like, hey guys, I agree, this may not be the best decision, and I know that we may not like this, but this is what we have to do, and we're going to stick to it, because this is what the company believes is the best thing to do. And the way that we're going to build trust with the company is by executing on our job. You know, I really take a lot of these lessons from Ted Lasso, and I think about what I've learned from Jocko Willink in Extreme Ownership, in The Dichotomy of Leadership, in Leadership Strategies and Tactics, you know, all of these books. And one of the big things she talks about is being sincere and not hiding the truth. You know, there's a tactful, diplomatic way to tell the truth, but if you're trying to just cover up your lies, eventually it's going to come out, and it's a lot more mental burden and stress to try to keep track of every single lie you told. We know it's so much easier than trying to keep track of all that stuff. Just tell the freaking truth.
There it is. Tell the freaking truth. Honestly, the truth never changes, and that's always an easier way to live. You know, if you're constantly just lie after lie after lie, you're not going to be on your game, right? And if you're not on your game, if you're not your best self, that's just serving nobody, and you're not going to get to your goals anyways. So yeah, absolutely. You know, being sincere, so important, so important. And I love what you said. It's like, you can either be a part of your team and be liked as the leader, right? Or you can kind of lead, right? I think sometimes you want to be loved by the people, right? But that's not your job. Your job is to lead. And sometimes that means delivering messages that are going to be very uncomfortable, right? That don't want to hear, like budget cuts, right? Oh, your friend, yeah, he's no longer on the team anymore. he got cut. Yeah, like, those conversations happen, right? And it's so important to just be honest and truthful. And I think people
Yeah.
respect that a lot more than you being shady.
I think the worst thing when it comes to people who like lie about that, especially when it comes to like budget cuts, because I've seen that before, right? Like, like hey,
You've
Don was
experienced it.
in, yeah, we're like Don was in his cubicle yesterday. Now he's gone. I've gone through it myself. Like I've been the one let go. I've been there, and if you don't tell the truth to your team, they're going to create their own truth, and I guarantee the truth that they come up with is going to be far worse than the actual truth. So if they see one person leave, and you're just like, oh no, he needed to move back to Montana or whatever, and just say like he's gone because of this or whatever, they're going to come up with another reason, or worse yet, they're going to talk to him, and then he's going to tell them the truth because everyone's still friends. Just because they're not in the building doesn't mean they're not going to still communicate.
Yeah.
They're going to tell the truth, and now instead of it just being like we had to let them go because of budget cuts, we had to let them go because of their their inability to do the job. Now it becomes our whole corporation is going to shut down. They're going to fire us. We're not going to get our severance. They're not going to continue to fund our 401k, and they're going to kill my dog. Like that's what's going to happen. So just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And you avoid that crazy chain of causality that they're going to come up with.
Yeah. And it was so funny about that because like the truth is sometimes very scary, and you find that it's like, oh, well, maybe if I just do a little white lie or I don't say anything, it's like, it'll all go away. And it's just the toughest road is the easiest road. So just take that path, right? Honesty over everything is usually the best in every case.
Yeah, I would agree. Number 2 lesson that I learned from watching Ted Lasso that I think applies to leadership is to stay teachable as a leader. I think too many leaders, they think like, I'm the person in charge. You can't teach me, person, because I'm teaching you. But it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how smart you are. Everyone out there has something to teach you. If I was poor and on the streets, I would much rather take the little boy from like Mexico who's done it his whole life rather than someone who went to college all 4 years and has a degree and grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth. Like one of those people is going to be way better in that situation.
Yeah.
But we don't look at that person as like if they have anything to teach us because we kind of distill something worse. And we've talked about that before when we came up with the question, like, what do you do for work? It's not because I really care. It's because I want to know how much respect should I show you?
Yeah, it's so true. Have you seen that image? I don't know if you've seen this image, but it's a race. It's a bicycle race, right? And on one side, in second place, is a kid who's decked out. All the padding, helmets, gear, best of everything, right? And in first place is a kid with a broken down bike, no shoes, torn clothes, dirty, right? And on one side, it's like the kid who has everything versus the kid who wants everything, right? And it's so powerful to me, right? It's like you can learn something from everyone, whether they're beneath you or above you. And I would never say anybody is beneath me or above me, right? They're just living a different experience than I'm living, right? I think teachability is probably the best, one of the top 5 best skills you can ever have as a person, right? As a father, as a mother, as a brother, as a sister, as a coworker, as a boss, right? As an entrepreneur. If you're not teachable, you're not moldable, right? And you're going to be stuck in the time period that you're stuck in. And that is a very unfortunate way to live. And it's a way to get left behind. And nobody wants to get left behind. Nobody wants to leave you behind. But unfortunately, sometimes you gotta let some people go. And that's one way to kind of fight that. But I don't know. What's your thought process on staying teachable?
I think it's just to remember that, have that growth mindset, and to remember that you're never at your end stage. I think that's why people get so crazy about teachability, is because like they think that who I am right now is my final form. Like I can't get any better. So if you're talking about something about me, then that means like, oh, I can't change anything about me. So like, how dare you that you say that? Because they're not realizing that like whatever they say to you is about just one aspect of you. And that doesn't mean that one aspect of you is all of you. You are not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. You're not your emotions. You're not your body. You're the amalgamation of all of those things. If I take one experience away from you, you're still you. If I take away your arm, you're still you. There is no one thing that makes you you. It's all of it together. So when someone is freaking out about their teachability, I think it's that they're stuck in a mindset of this is who I am and I can't change. when you can always change. You just need to change your identity to be the person that can grow, that can learn, that is the learner, not the person that's the smartest person in the room.
Absolutely. You said something there that kind of struck me a little bit, where it's like, it never ends. Right? I know oftentimes as humans, we're looking for a finish line. And one of the stories that I heard from Kobe Bryant that I thought was really interesting, and I'll make this short so we can get back onto the Ted Lasso that everybody signed up for. But, the night before his last game, he was still in the gym. That's that morning, training. And that's the dedication it takes, right? People ask one of my favorite people, David Goggins, they're like, "Man, when does it end?" He's like, "There is no effing end. There's no end to the suffering. This is your new life." Like, the journey of self-improvement is an open-ended journey. It's not a closed-ended journey. It's not a marathon with a set distance and a set route. It's open-ended and there's no finish line. But I almost disagree with that a little bit, because in my eyes, the finish line is every day. You get to the end of every day, and you feel proud about the decisions and the person that you were today. And if you got a little bit better, across today's finish line. That's how I always kind of viewed it.
Yeah, both statements are kind of true there, in that yes, it doesn't end, because tomorrow there's a new race, but at the end of the day, you finished that race, but there's another one tomorrow. So yes, both statements are true simultaneously. Number 3, which I think kind of ties into what we just talked about as being a good leader, as learned by Ted Lasso: see the good in others. See the good in your team. See the good in your opponents from other teams. See good in the bosses, in the customer. If you're looking for negative, you're going to find negative. But if you look for the good, you're going to see the good.
So true. That's beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that one, or do you want to move on to the next one?
I don't even know where to go with that one. That's such a beautiful statement. To see the good in people, see the good in things. Your life can change in ways that you'll never understand until you start living that way, is when you start changing from an optimist to a pessimist and seeing the good in everybody versus seeing the bad in everybody. And I think there's definitely times when you should be pessimist. I think there's definitely times where you should see the bad in people, right? And I think there's a lot of benefit to come from seeing the good in people too. And I don't think everybody's out to hurt you, harm you. And I believe in people. Me personally, I believe in people. I believe that they can accomplish more than they can. And I believe there's more good in people than people recognize. And I'm that type of person. I'm that person in the friend group where it's like, oh wow, this guy's kind of a lost cause. It's like, I'm over here like, not yet. Not yet.
I think it's funny because when we say like see the good in others, we all imagine that we're the center of everyone's universe. That when someone makes a choice, they're making that choice consciously in order to spite us. Like they're making it with the thought of us in mind. But in truth, they're just making the thought of whatever is best for them, or you're not even considered in their decision making. Yet we all perceive it as like it's about me. This is a me problem, isn't it? When it has nothing to do with you. They're living their own life. They don't think about you. No one's thinking about you. When that guy cuts you off in traffic and you freak out that he did it because he knew you were going to react to it the worst, they didn't think about it. They were doing their own thing without any thought of you. And that can be a scary thought, and like not everyone's thinking about me. Or it could be a very liberating thought in that I'm not the center of the universe.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful about that. It's like, it's the perspective at which you view the world through. It's like, wow, nobody's thinking about me. Nobody cares about me. I must be a POS and I'm nothing. Or it's like, no, I'm having my own experience and everybody else is having their own experience. And I'm not going to be so egotistical to think that I'm the center of everybody's universe, which is tough, which is so tough. Because I know me personally, I'm not too proud to admit it, right? When I was growing up, I'm like, man, am I the only one conscious? Is everything around me for me? And that's part ego talking, right? And I think there's power in ego and there's a lot of destruction in ego, but it's all about how you use it. But it's a very sharp blade and it can cut you real deep and it can cut other people real deep. So it's definitely not something I like to tap into very often.
Yeah, I think it's important to take that wider perspective and realize that you're not the center of the universe. You know, when you think of like a child thinks of them as the center of the universe. Like when you talk to like a little kid before they understand that the difference of self, they'll like tell you like, oh yeah, remember that thing that we did earlier today when we were doing that stuff, and I like, and they're like, I wasn't there. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Because they don't have that identity of self to like believe that you weren't there, so you didn't experience what I experienced. I remember as a kid growing up, we would always drive in the carpool lane, right?
Hmm.
And I was always thinking as a kid, like, why do they have a carpool lane? I can't think of a time in my life that I've ever been in a car without another person in there. So why is not everyone using the carpool lane? And it wasn't until I took a wider perspective and kind of grew up a little bit that I realized, oh, because I'm only seeing it through my lens. And as a child, obviously there should never be a time that I'm driving in the car by myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like I took that wider perspective to realize like, everyone else is doing the same thing. Yeah, that's just kind of a funny thing to think.
That's
like,
hilarious.
as a
I
kid.
love that. I love that so much. It kind of reminds me of, this is kind of, I don't know, you might find this interesting a little bit, but when I was younger, same thing, right? I'm like, oh, this world was created for me. Maybe not created for me, but this world's mine for the taking, right? And in my mind, I was like, if that's true, I can do no wrong and everything, and like it'll all not necessarily come easy, but anything that does happen is destiny, and it's just like, I don't know. Everything that is happening is the way it's supposed to be happening, and maybe I was sent here for a certain reason. Maybe in this lifetime I was meant to learn more about what pain feels like, or learn what love feels like, or this is the season of my life where my ego is supposed to be crushed and destroyed and obliterated, and I rebuild in the next season or the next life. And it's so interesting having those thoughts as a child, because you don't know anything. And the more you grow up, the more you learn that you still don't know anything. And the more, like the bell curve we talk about on the podcast, right? When you're ignorant, you think you know everything. And then when you know a little bit, you start to understand that you know nothing, right? And I don't know of anyone who knows everything yet. So we'll figure that one out when we get there.
That's kind of funny. You had that realization of like, maybe my goal is to like get a little bit better in this life. Like that's the idea behind Buddhism and reincarnation, is that we constantly are, each life we're supposed to try to get a little bit higher on the pendulum to, reaching nirvana or reaching that enlightenment.
Yeah.
And each life you have to go through and find another thing. So that's kind of funny that you had that realization that the Buddha had, like that was like his realization, and you had that as a kid.
Weirdly enough, one of my goals, one of my dreams, and every time I say this out loud, I get laughed at for it for some reason. And I understand why they laugh at it, but I always thought it was so interesting to live as a monk and to take a vow of silence. And I know that's kind of ironic, we're on a podcast, I'm speaking like for the next hour, it's like, what am I going to do? Type in chat? Like, I don't know. So it really would be very inconvenient for my life. But I always respected it, and I always thought it was so brilliant to take a vow of silence, live as a monk, and live that very disciplined lifestyle. Like kind of like a Shaolin monk. I'm not saying I that's this is the last episode, and I'm gonna go.
The next podcast is just gonna be me talking and you nodding.
Just thumbs up, thumbs down. Exactly. That's not what I'm saying, but I would definitely love to just be in my own mind for a spell, for a season. And hopefully that's a season of love, and not a season where, wow, everyone I love is gone and I have no one to talk to, and now I'm just in my own mind. Like, hopefully it's not that chapter. Hopefully it's a much happier chapter. But yeah, number 4. You want to get to number 4?
And number 4 really, really sits in with number 3 of see the good in other people. And that number 4 is happiness is a choice. And that's 100%. Really important as a leader to focus. It's about where you point that flashlight. Are you pointing that flashlight at the anger, at the concern, the being mad at your employees, or are you pointing it at the happiness? Because your employees are going to pick up on that. Your life's going to pick on that. Everything's going to pick up on that. So if you choose to be happy, you can be happy. It's not a destination. It is a choice. And this is something that I have to tell myself constantly, because I'm constantly feeling like happiness is just around the corner. But no, happiness is here right now if I choose to have it. It's not out there somewhere else. It's here in me.
I think that these are just not just leadership lessons, but these are life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
These are life lessons, man. I mean, if you could install this in a child from birth, or 5 years old, 10 years old, it'd be set up pretty well. Happiness is a choice. See the good in others. Stay teachable. Stay sincere. I love this. I love this so far.
Next one that we should probably teach each other, teach leaders, teach everyone, is that winning is an attitude.
Yeah.
Winning isn't winning the game. It's feeling like you're growing, like you're becoming a better version of yourself. Winning is the journey. Regardless if you win or lose the competition, did you try your best? Did you grow? Did you learn? Then you won.
It's so interesting what a change of attitude will do to a person. And not just appearance wise, right? But physically, right? If I told myself I was a winner every day for my life, I guarantee, and I had a twin, right? I bet my life would be better than if the other twin said I'm a loser every single day of their life. And it's kind of like putting on an outfit. You might have an outfit in your closet that you're like, you put the shirt on, hugs your arms nice and tight. You know, it doesn't show any of the belly. You know, you got your pants, your favorite pair of pants on. You're like, man, I feel like $1,000,000. I feel like a winner. And you walk with a little stride. You walk with a little swagger. You walk with a little more confidence. Versus like, oh, my pants feel a little bit too tight. And this shirt's real baggy. I mean, we all have that outfit in our closet that we probably should get rid of. And it's just, why can't we have that winning attitude all the time? What's stopping us from telling ourselves, like, you know, I failed and failed and failed, but yet I still am a winner. I'm not a failure, you know? I don't understand what's stopping us from always having that winning mindset. Do you think it's possible? You think it's a good thing to always have an attitude of winning? Or do you think something else?
You know, I think it kind of ties into lesson number 6, which is having confidence in yourself. It's not the winning and the losing. It's the confidence to keep on moving forward.
Yeah. Confidence and attitude, they're almost synonymous a little bit. You know, they're of the same genre, I would say. I think having confidence is one of those things. It's like a muscle. It's no different than triceps or biceps, you know, squats, quads, you know, it's a muscle. You have to continuously push yourself to have confidence. And it's so funny because I think I have a lot of confidence, right? But I'm also, you know, it's just Chris and I right now, right? I don't have 1,000 people watching me, right? I've had it where I've had a lot of people watching me and it's like, oh, the heart starts pumping a little bit. Let's see what you're really made of, right? And I think that's what life is about. It's about testing yourself and pushing yourself to become greater and more. And having that confidence, it makes life so much easier. And it's so easy sitting in a room by myself talking about what it means to have confidence. Hey,
I think that confidence really ties in well with the next point, in that the people that are confident, the reason they're confident is because they're optimistic. They're optimistic they can make it through, that they can learn. And even if they don't, they're optimistic that they can grow enough to be there in the future and be where they want to be. And point number 7 is that optimists take more chances. And optimists and confident people, having that confidence to be optimistic, to take more chances, is what leads you to where you want to go. So lesson number 7 is optimists take more chances. And as a leader, we also need to take more chances. We need to be optimistic, because if we're pessimistic, thinking everything is going to fail, then we're never going to try to do anything. And we're never going to grow as a team, because we're all just staying safe.
Absolutely. The future belongs to the optimists.
Fortune favors the bold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. When you said that, the only thing that I remembered is if you live in Arizona, you know the like Arizona lottery thing. It's like, so you're like, fortune favors the bold, and I was like, and you can't win if you don't play. And I was like, isn't that a gambling slogan? Like, what the? I'm quoting the freaking lottery right now. But no, sorry, I had to go off on that little tangent. It just, you struck a nerve. I don't know why that struck a nerve. Fortune favors the bold. I feel like that's like a casino line. I've seen that in a casino somewhere.
It's a Stoic philosophy. It's from the Odyssey, I think. It's like an old one.
It's not from like the Wynn or Harris casinos. Okay,
I'm sure they took it. It's like, it's ours now.
Yeah,
they trademarked it. They're like, this is ours.
This is ours now. Yeah, fortune favors the bold. Bet it all on black. I do it. It's like, oh wow, this sucks. Alrighty, so that was number 7.
That was number 7. Optimists take more chances. Number 8. Everyone's different from everyone else. Different people are different people. I think this is really important to remember as a leader, as a human being, that oh, I once met a cop, and he was a real asshole. So I think all cops are bad people.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I went to the doctor once, and he kind of dismissed me. So all doctors are bad people. Different people are different people.
Yeah. That's if you could just separate each experience into separate experiences, it would be a lot more peaceful life, I think. A lot
Yeah,
more
I would
peaceful.
agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So number 9.
Courage is the willingness to attempt.
And courage is scary.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe not even courage is scary, but it's the fear that courage faces is what's scary.
Yeah, it's that vulnerability, right? In order to be courageous, you have to be vulnerable to put yourself out there, to fail, and to realize that even if I fail, I'm going to be okay. I'll continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Because to point number 10, these are actually like really flowing well with each other with our conversation.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is actually a strength, not a weakness. And
Yeah.
vulnerability is what allows us to be courageous, is what allows us to take that step. And I think one of the reasons that we're able to have these conversations, so go kind of more in depth. And when you meet somebody, if you're the one who's walled off, especially as a leader, it's like, oh no, I'm perfect. It's like, no, I'm perfect. Like you're messed up. I'm perfect though. You're never going to actually make that connection with another human being. In order for that person to open up, to feel comfortable with you, you need to open up with them. You need to be vulnerable with the things that you're struggling with that you're having issues with. And then you'll see that the floodgates kind of open because everyone wants this conversation. We kind of take it from a financial realm. We tell everyone that you need to talk more openly about money and be vulnerable, because you'll realize once that floodgate opens, everyone's just like, oh God, I just needed somebody to talk to about this because I was so scared that I was the only person messing up. When in actuality, we're all so scared that we're the only one messing up.
Yeah. It's so funny how so many people are having the same emotions at the same time. And we think while we are all having unique experiences, there's a lot of overlapping. And that's the reason why we can do a podcast like this and share our experiences. Like, I didn't know that, Chris, when he was younger, had a thought about the HIV lane. Like, why isn't everybody in the HIV? It doesn't make any sense. Like, and I had a similar thought process in my childhood, right? And that's what's kind of beautiful. It's like we're all in the same experience, but we're all having different experiences at the same time. And it's kind of out there. It's kind of out there, but I love that. I love that about us. I love that about us at humans, not just you and I. But something that kind of hit me, not from last podcast, but I think it was 2 podcasts back, and I'll get right back to you, Chris. But it's like, sometimes you have to be willing to be wrong in order to be successful. And that's what courage helps with. That's what courage is. You have to be willing to be wrong in order to be right. Chris, you had a point?
Yeah, I was just thinking about talking about like vulnerability, right? So we all have the same experiences, just maybe some of us hide it better than others do. Yesterday when I was at jiu-jitsu, I was telling some of my students about my collegiate and high school wrestling career. And one of the guys was like, I hate going against wrestlers when I go to tournaments, because like they've wrestled for so long that a fight to them is no big deal. Like they're just like, it's another Tuesday. And I told him, like, that's actually not true. Like, they're just as scared as you are. They just know how to hide it better. And I think like by me being vulnerable and telling him like if you watch me before a match, like I look like I'm cool as a cucumber. Internally, I'm freaking the hell out, because it doesn't matter how many times you do it. Yeah, it's scary every single time, because you're having to put yourself out there with courage to be vulnerable, to maybe lose in front of all your friends and all your family. And that's scary. So by me being vulnerable with him and telling him like, yeah, man, I'm scared too. I just don't show it. And he's like, oh, so it's not weakness to be scared. It's actually a strength to be scared. Just you hide it better. And just like money, where the vulnerability of being open with people is what allows you to grow more strength, to find your tribe, to find people that agree with you, because you're willing to be open with them and show that, hey, I have these issues too.
100%.
And that brings us together, not separates us.
100%. And as men, we love to close ourselves off. It's the stoic, it's the manly thing to do. Men don't show emotions. I would agree and disagree at the same time, right? And that might be something I need to work through. But something you said there was kind of interesting. Only to be open is to grow. You can't be closed off and grow at the same time. Have you seen that result as well, or can you be closed off and grow, Chris? What do you think?
I think it'd be very difficult. I can't think of a situation where you could be closed off to new opportunities, to new things and grow. The only thing I could think of would, if you were closed off and grow, is you come to the realization that because I was so close to so many things, I missed so many things. And that's my growth, is now realizing I need to be more open to things.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. And there's nothing wrong with being open. That's such a crazy thing to say, right? There's nothing wrong with being open. Hey, it's okay to talk about your emotions as a guy. It's okay to express how you're feeling, right? It's okay to be a burden sometimes, right? I know a lot of us, myself mostly, I'm speaking from experience, right? I don't want to be a burden to everybody, right? When in actuality, the people that are in my phone, that are in my favorites, they actually care about me and I'm not a burden to them. And that's something that I have to work through, right? But yeah, it's beautiful to be open. It's strength to be open. It's powerful to grow. And I would say it's necessary to grow.
Yeah. I can think of times in my life where I was like really struggling, like with my mental health, with depression, anxiety, all those things. And for my whole life, I always had this perception of myself of I'm the strong person. I'm the person that everyone turns to in the time of need. I'm the person that when grandma dies or the dog dies, everyone looks to me for like reassurance that it's going to be okay. Like we're going to make it through this. And for the first time in my life, I was the one who needed help. And it was scary for me when it was like, I need to reach out to my family, to my friends and tell them like, I need help. Because my fear was like, they're going to be like, if it happened to Chris, then maybe I should be depressed too. Cause like, he's the guy that we turn to and he's struggling. Like, should I do it? And it wasn't until like I got over that and like got to a point that I was so down in the dumps that I need to reach out to somebody, that by being vulnerable, by showing them that like, hey, I hurt too, that I was able to get through that. Because rather than suffering alone, I was able to share that pain and they were able to take some of that burden, and help me get through that.
Yeah.
So move on to number 11, or do you have any points?
I just want to pause for a sec. I think it shows the type of man that you are, that you're willing to not just open up to your family, right? But to open up to our viewers too. And to say and give true firsthand experience on what it's like to be the pillar and have people like hold up the pillar too, right? And that's beautiful. That's to me like that's the male experience. That's the man experience. Not necessarily the male experience, but that's what it means to like be the man, right? To be the pillar, but also be able to ask for help when you need it, right? I think that shows so much self-awareness and so much growth, because I know like we were never born like that. Like we didn't come out of the womb done deal, right? We didn't read Extreme Ownership and be like, wow, I'm great now. We didn't read, Marcus Aurelius and be like, wow, I'm great now. It's like, no, you read it and you had to practice it and you had to put it into motion and you had to suffer and you had to get through the suffering and you just tested and tested and tested and failed and succeeded and failed and succeeded. And it's like, that's what it's like to be alive. I love that. That's what living is to me. And I love that. I love that. Feeling the sadness, feeling the happiness, feeling everything that life has to offer and becoming better because of it. That's what life is all about to me. And I hope if you're listening to this podcast, maybe this might be the first time you're hearing thoughts like this, conversation like this. You clicked in for Ted Lasso because he's a happy guy, happy-go-lucky guy. But maybe you're getting more out of this. Maybe this is the first time that you've really absorbed more of a deeper conversation in regards to your emotions and what you want to be in life. And this is what we do on the Fi Guys, right? We talk not just about financial independence, right? Fi meaning financial independence, if you didn't know. But we talk a lot about the psychology behind our actions and our behaviors. And Chris and I are not fully realized, nirvana, we're not enlightened by any means, but we're on the path and we're always getting better. And, if you want to come with us, come with us. We'd love to have you. Feel free to hit the follow button or subscribe or share it with a friend. But with that being said, I think we should move on to number 11.
Yeah. Number 11 is doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. I think for leaders especially, we need to realize that, because oftentimes we feel like, oh man, we're doing the right thing and I'm doing it and I'm not seeing the success. While those guys over there, they're doing the wrong thing and it's working for them. They're successful. And yeah, in the short term, it might feel like they're winning, but I guarantee it's going to catch up with them. Where with you, if you just keep doing the right thing, it is never the wrong thing. You will get to where you want to go. This is far more than just leadership, though. This is life.
Yeah.
Like, this is life.
100%. 100%. If you can carry these rules with you and keep them in the front of your brain as you go through life and as you experience relationships fail, businesses fail, things going great, things going bad, right? You're going to be so much better off. So much better off. These are kind of things that, truthfully, no one told. I don't know about you, Chris, but for me, it's like nobody told me about these things. Like I had to come to these dude, I had to come to these goddamn conclusions myself. I had to do this myself. There was nobody there saying, oh yeah, see the good in others. Winning is an attitude. Optimism's courage, all these, like, nobody told us these things.
I think we did. You saw them on posters. You heard them in religion. You've heard grandma tell you these things. But what do we all do? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have life experience. And the more and more we grow, and we realize that this ancient wisdom from grandma, from the books of the Bible, from the Tao Te Ching, from freaking meditations, from any book from eternity. Maybe there's a reason that these things keep on coming through, but we all think that this is something of the past. Maybe these are the true divine truth, like the true logos of reality are these teachings. And someone did teach it to you. Just we all went, no, you're wrong. You don't have enough life experience like I do.
Yeah.
All of the ancient people who all came to the same realization, well, they didn't have iPhones, so they're not as smart as me.
That's an interesting thought. That's a very interesting thought. It kind of brings me back to, it's like, damn, well, am I having an original experience? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, there's been billions of people on this planet probably having the same experience that I've had. But number 12, you want to go to number 12?
Yeah. Be curious, not judgmental.
Power right there. That's power.
I think it's so tough, especially in the world that we live in nowadays, where everyone has an opinion. And I fight tooth and nail for your right to have your opinion. I may not like what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And also, you need to sometimes shut your mouth. Like, people need to just be quiet and be curious. Yeah. Like just because you have an opinion, it doesn't mean that it needs to be stated. You have the right to state your opinion, but sometimes the best thing to do is to keep your judgment to yourself and be curious to, why is this person saying what they're saying, rather than them saying it as a direct judgment against me. Yeah. Because when we say something on the podcast, when you hear someone talk about something on the news that you disagree with, they're not coming at you individually. They're making a statement based off of their things. And if you had their DNA, you lived their life, you had their experiences, I believe you would think the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So rather than looking at, oh, these other people are villains because they think something different than I do, they think the exact same thing about you.
Yeah, it's always so funny to me. It's like, you have more in common with your enemy than you might think. So much more in common. And I mean, you can take, I don't want to get too political, right? You could take like World War II, for example. Like, both sides felt like they were fighting evil. Both sides had huge national pride, right? They believed what they were doing was for the good of their people, for the good of the future. And one side was bamboozled, right? And I think that's part of what we're trying to do with the podcast, and part of what I've been seeing a lot more of online, is kind of just waking up a little bit. Like, zooming out, not living hour by hour, minute by minute, month by month, year by year. Let's zoom out. Let's look at our life and the decisions we're making. I think it's so important to be curious in life. And I think it's so important to not be judgmental. I think there's a time for being judgmental, but you shouldn't be judgmental all the time. I think there's a big difference between constructive criticism and judgment. Judgment comes from a place of ego. It comes from a place of hatred. It comes from a dark place in yourself, right? Speaking from experience, right? But constructive criticism comes from the exact opposite place. It comes from love. Like, I just want to see you succeed, man. I just want to see you reach your fullest potential, right? So be curious, but not judgmental.
Yeah. I would say judgment comes from wanting to tear it down, where curiosity or being, maybe not curiosity, but constructive criticism comes from trying to build things up. So number
Curiosity
13,
builds things up. Judgment tears things down.
Mm-hmm. And what side of the ledger do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the light side of history or the dark side?
Yeah.
There is power in the darkness. Don't get me wrong, but the light is where you want to live.
Yeah. Right.
So number 13, and then we'll move on to 5 Friday feedback. Perfect. And this is definitely a Ted Lasso one. Be a goldfish. Don't allow one bad deed define who you are. In less than 10 seconds, forget about it like a goldfish.
I love that. I think everybody could live a little bit better of a life. They were just a little bit more like a goldfish.
I think too many of us, we ruminate on the past and we fear the future. And the more time that you spend there, not here, because we have this amazing brain that developed over tens of thousands of years. And the thing that separates our brain from most other mammals or most other species, with the exception of a few like dolphins and orcas, is that we have a very large, fully formed frontal lobe. And that frontal lobe does a lot of amazing things, critical thinking, the ability to step outside of yourself, to think about your thinking. No other animal that we know of has that part. But that part also leads to so much discontent, because that part allows us to think about our thinking, and it allows us to time travel. I can time travel to the future because of my brain. And you can too. You can time travel to the past and put yourself right back in a situation. And regardless if it's happening to you or not, your body's experiencing that these things are happening to me. And whenever you're living in the future in anxiety, or you're living in the past in depression, you're never going to actually be present. And the more time that people can realize to be like a goldfish, be here. Don't be in the past 10 seconds ago. Let go of all that stuff that you did. Yeah, I hate things that I did in the past, and I wish I could change them, but I can't. All I can do right now is learn from them and try to move forward to the best of my ability. And I can't do anything about the future either, with the exception of try to set myself up today for that eventuality.
Yeah, in a sense, it's almost like it doesn't exist, the past and the future, because you can't touch it or feel it. But you can feel it. And that's dangerous sometimes. Like we've talked about on this podcast before, if you're living in the past, you're going to be quite depressed sometimes. And if you're living in the future, you're going to be quite anxious. So the best thing for us is to just live in the present.
Yeah. From like a quantum physics perspective, the past and the future are realities that we can contact. But you right now, at this time in our knowledge, you cannot access that. So just be present right now. Absolutely. Maybe one day we'll have a new discovery, but until then, just be now. Be here, be now.
Kind of like the end of Interstellar. It's like, history is a physical place. It's like, well, that's kind of interesting. So with that being said, I think we're going to get on to mailbag. Are you cool to mailbag? Go back to the mailbag?
Before we do, I have one thought that I want to share. That's kind of weird when it comes towards like that idea of like physical space, right? Your thoughts are a physical thing. Your thoughts in your brain have physical mass, because all mass is just light, and the electrical impulses that create thought is light. Light is a particle. Particles have mass. Mm-hmm. So every thought you have, every feeling, the past, the present, the future, it is all tangible. Just because we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't really even interact with it, we have trouble even conceiving of what it means. What is the particle? Is it a wave? Is it an individual photon? We don't know. But it is physical. It's a real thing, which I think is just kind of cool to think about. So when you're maybe having issues thinking like, oh man, I can't get rid of this thought, it's because it's a real thing. Get it and put it on the shelf. Just like you put, I don't know, if you have a photo of your father or someone that hurt you before, and it's physically there in the room, and you look at it every day and it makes you feel bad and it hurts you and it's not serving you, you can take it, you can put it down, put it on the shelf for later on. Same with your thoughts. They take up physical space, and that physical space can be controlled.
100%. With that being said, we're going to get on to our next segment of today's podcast. This is where we take a letter that we've received from the community. All right. We read it out. We call this 5 Friday feedback. So with that being said, welcome to 5 Friday feedback, viewer mailbag time. So today's header is kind of a doozy. Just got dumped. Need to make quick money decisions.
Okay.
We've all been there, probably. Hopefully. I don't know. Maybe you've been lucky enough to where you haven't been dumped, but some of us are not that lucky. And that's all right. That's all right. Anyway, let's get past that. I'm going back. You can see me. You can see my mind just going into the past.
Trauma.
Pretty much. So, dear Chris and Dom, howdy. It's hard to know where to begin when life throws you a curveball as fast and as hard as this. After 12 years together, 12 years of building a shared life, my partner left. Just like that. No warning, no plan, and no closure. All the financial responsibilities you ask, it stayed with me. As if someone had tossed me the weight of both of our worlds and said, good luck. Every debt is in my name alone. Every bill, every payment, every piece of financial baggage collected together is now my burden. And yes, I know it sounds reckless, but 12 years with someone leads you to believe that you're a team. Who expects that they'll end up holding you? Who expects they'll end up holding the ball solo? True. 12 years is a long time. And I don't know if they were married or doesn't sound like, I feel like they would have mentioned divorce here. So I'm guessing
Yeah, I
long-time
feel like they would have
partner.
mentioned. Yeah, when someone says the word partner, I think that
Yeah.
typically doesn't mean like marriage, but I don't know. That just could be my perception of things. So we'll see. We'll see if they say it.
See, so here's where I stand financially. I have a little bit of credit card debt, $40,000. The minimum payments are running me about $1,400 each month, and my credit score, it's taken so many hits it can barely stand anymore. I kind of like that. I love a little humor, and that's the way that I'm going to raise my kids. A little bit of humor in the pain. I love that.
You laugh through the tears.
You laugh with the tears. Yeah, exactly. So, mortgage and home equity. This house we bought together has $139,000 left to pay on it, with a monthly payment of $1,800. Right, so it's pretty close to the credit card debt. The kicker: the house needs serious work, repairs I can't even begin to afford. So maybe something like maybe the roof or like the air conditioner. That's what I'm kind of imagining.
I would imagine that too. I think that they wouldn't mention if it was like, oh yeah, like the carpet's kind of like dirty and the floorboards. I don't
some new paint.
I don't love the trim. I think it's more like I don't have, like, I'm in Arizona and the AC's out. Like that. That's like a legitimate. Or like I'm in Michigan and I don't have a heater.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
I live in Oregon and there's a hole in my roof. Like that's gonna be an issue. Yeah, 100%. So I'm left thinking that the only other option might be to sell the house. From my rough math, it might cover my outstanding amount on the house. Might even scrape together a little bit of profit if I move fast enough. But this timeline is a bit tight. Okay. This market isn't exactly predictable where I live. So
let's go ahead and stop for a second.
Yeah. Let's talk on that for a second. What do you think on that? Timeline is tight. What does she mean?
This is the way I've always looked at it when it comes to things like this. Mm-hmm. When we're having an emotional response, the time to make huge life decisions is probably not in this moment. Like you were just dumped by your partner of 12 years. Like you're really going through it. You're stressed about money. We know as human beings, we don't make good decisions in these moments. So by you adding another layer of like the timeline is tight. I don't know why the timeline is tight.
Yeah,
because the market moves. Is that what she's saying? Like housing prices fluctuate. They fluctuate all the time. Like it just kind of is what it is.
100%. Yeah. I have something else to say on that particularly, but I'm going to save it for the end, and I'm going to make just a little bit of note. Yeah, because I'm worried that timeline is in their head and not in their reality. Mm-hmm. So I got my note, and I'll say it after this. And then, of course, there's the rest, the everyday cost of just living to get by. Utilities, groceries, gas, it all adds up. Every dollar I spend feels like it's already spoken for, and a debt on top of a debt. My income is about $4,000 a month. The numbers, they simply don't add up. I need direction. What bills do I prioritize to get me through this month? How do I start taking back control of my financial mess that spiraled so far out of my hands? If it comes down to it, I have a place to stay, but it's the rest of my life. The house, the debt, the future. That's what I need help saving for. Any guidance you can offer will be more than just financial advice, to be honest. Right now, it's a lifeline with gratitude. From blindsided and broke, but my spirit won't choke, got left with a mess, but I'll still rise nonetheless. Interesting. So total, we've got $40,000 in credit card debt. We've got $1,400. That's $1,400 a month paying towards that credit card. I'm guessing that's minimum payments.
Yeah, she said that specifically.
Yeah, $1,800 in mortgage, and doesn't really mention the total cost of like utilities and everything else. But she said that it's more than the $4,000 that she makes a month.
Yeah, I mean we're already have $3,200 taken out, so that only leaves $700 for the rest of her life.
32,
$800 for the rest of her life. I wonder when she says at the end, I have a place to stay, but it's the rest of my life. I wonder it comes down to it. If it comes to it, I have a place to stay. Does that mean that like if I sold the house, I have a place to stay, or like at worst case scenario, at least I have a house? I don't know what she's saying.
I don't really get what she's saying there either. I think it would be easier if she had an outside place to stay. Weirdly enough, because I know she owns a home, so it doesn't really make much sense. But I think
I'm going to operate under the assumption that she has a place she could move to, like maybe her parents, or like she has a place to go to if she was to sell the house. I think that's what she means by that sentence.
Yeah. I think, first off, I'm sorry for the situation. I know we got right to the numbers of it all. We're a finance podcast nonetheless, so it kind of makes sense. But it's a very human emotion that you're feeling. I mean, it's desperation, it's sadness, it's fear, it's scarcity, it's the why of it all, and the unanswered question, the trust that's been broken. And I'm sorry for that. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But even on your toughest days, you got through it, and you'll continue to get through it. As far as the finance side of the situation, and please stop me if I'm ever wrong, Chris, but I feel like she should sell the house. And part of my decision is because of the financial side, right? It would help her in her situation. But also, I mean, this is a major chapter change in her life. I mean, you went from building your life like, oh yeah, we're going to live the next maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 years together, to, wow, this person doesn't exist in my book anymore. And I think it's time for a little change of scenery. I think every turn in that house could be a memory, and it could be a very depressing place to stay.
Yeah.
I think it's the quicker you can move past the memories and start making new memories, the better. I might be biased. I might be wrong on that. But Chris, what do you think?
From a financial decision, I don't know if that's the right financial choice. I don't have enough data.
Yeah.
But from a human decision, from an emotional standpoint of where I stand, if my partner was to leave me, and we've been together for nearly 10 years, so we're not even, a little bit over 10 years, we're not even there where they are. I think it'd be very hard to continue to live in my house and like look at my bed, look at, the times that we had in the kitchen, all that stuff. So from an emotional standpoint, I definitely get it. So I think you have a good point there, and to consider, because the finances of keeping the house aren't great. Like they're pretty dismal. I don't know what major repairs means. I hope she's not saying like, oh, the cabinets are just not the right color. Like, I'm sure she's saying like, this is like some serious like risk. But I think maybe selling the house may be a good option. But there's definitely some more considerations we have to do before we could make a recommendation like that. Because we have a 5-paragraph letter here. Obviously, we're not going to be like, yeah, you should definitely do that. I know you had another point that you wrote down. What was that point that you wanted to make before I get into my kind of thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes when you're selling a house, right, you're going to have real estate, realtor commissions, right? And that can really cut into your profits. One of the things you could look for is, I'm guessing you must have bought this house a while ago, a good amount ago, right? And I don't know what kind of interest rate you have on the house. But what you could do is reach out to an investor and be like, hey, look, some investors are going to lowball the heck out of you, right? That's not the investor you want, right? You're not you're not looking for the investor that is trying to lowball you, because that's not the deal you're trying to present. What I would present is more like, hey, like, I have this house. I had a major life change in my world, and I'm trying to move on, right? I've got $139,000 left on the mortgage, right? The house is worth, we'll say, what do you want to say? 200? Let's say 200,000.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll say
Oh, no,
200.
I would imagine that it's probably more than 200,000 because they've had it for 12 years and now there's 140 left.
Well, they've been together for 12 years. I don't know when they got it.
Okay.
So.
That's true. That's true. It's true.
So we'll just, for simple math, we'll say there's $140,000 on the house still left to pay, right? And 200,000 is worth the house, right? Maybe you got it a few years back when interest rates were low. You say, look, why don't you take over my mortgage, right? And you pay me the difference, you pay my closing costs, and you pay me a little bit extra, right? And a lot of investors nowadays, it's called like subject to, they'll jump on that, right? Because you just can't get an interest rate at the interest rate that you're at. So that's one of the options that I would probably look into if you don't want to go through like the whole selling process. And granted, it is a whole nother process in itself. But this is that's one of the things that kind of hit my brain right when I heard this letter. What else do you have for her, Chris?
So the first thing that I would need to know more information on is the state of your guys' relationship when you purchase the house. One thing that she said is that everything is in her name. So does that mean that your partner's name is not on the house at all? Like you bought the house and they just you said they bought it together, but everything's in her name. So that those are two contradictory statements, unless it's all bought in her name and the partner just gave her money for like the down payment and like didn't take any equity or anything like that, didn't hide that. So that's something I'm a little curious about to be able to make a determination. But what I would recommend, because I'm assuming that they're not married, I'm assuming they're just partners, I would probably, before we sell the house, seek legal guidance or advice to handle the debt responsibly. Because since they were together for 12 years, there may be some legal implications in regards to common law marriage. And common law marriage varies state by state. So I don't know what state you're in. So that could be something to think about too. But if you were in a common law marriage and you were to look for legal advice, there could constitute like a divorce attorney being necessary, because your partner that left may be financially responsible. Just because they're gone out of your life doesn't mean they just dipped off the face of the earth. I'm sure it's kind of ghosting you. I'm sure you still know where they are. It's not like that you're worried they're dead. They just left you and are somewhere else. If not, that'd be a very different letter. Like my partner is missing and I don't know what to do, but this is like, they left me.
Don't call us.
If you call the police, be a very different. Don't send me a letter.
Don't send me a letter like, hey, fine guys, what should I do financially? It's like, you need to call a detective. You might be liable for this. My God.
Yeah, but my thought is like, so they're just like, they just left, but that doesn't mean they can't be found. But if there's common law marriage and they just leave you, they're still responsible for that house and they're still responsible for that debt. So it may be worth looking at a divorce attorney or something like that, depending on the state, to go and ask those questions to. And I know money's tight right now, but many divorce attorneys, they offer free initial consultations, or they'll do a low cost, like single hour advice. So that could help determine if your former partner holds any responsibility for the debt and the financial obligations, which could take a huge burden off you. Because right now you just said, I'm holding this ball solo. Well, it may not be that way. Just because you guys were never officially married, that doesn't mean in the nature of the law that they don't bear any responsibility just because their name isn't on the house. But again, you need an attorney. I don't know what state you're in. I don't know a lot of issues, but that's something you can think about. So after we do that, consult the attorney, see what's going on there. We need to start covering the essentials first. So I would focus on the most important things, which are your utilities, your food, your transportation, and just making sure that those things are taken care of. Obviously, we're not living lavishly. This is not the time to focus on your transportation and buying a new car. This is not the time to be going out to Ruth's Chris every night. This is not the time to, if you're in the AC, if you're in Arizona during the summer or in Michigan in the winter, you're not like, oh, you know what? It's so hot outside. I want the temperature to be 54 degrees inside my house. Like, it's going to require a little bit of suffering, unfortunately, to provide that like stability while you navigate this, let's call it a financial transition in life. So when it comes to selling the house, let's go ahead and evaluate some of these options. Yes, we can sell the house. And if you do so, you can go with Dominic's idea, which I really thought, or I thought was a good idea. I didn't think of that, but we can contact a real estate agent to evaluate if the current market value is feasible for a quick sale. And they can tell you if they think that the market's going to continue to fluctuate or not. Because right now I feel like you saying I need to sell it now is an emotional decision, not a factual decision, which is going to really mean something, right?
I'm right there with you. Man. I think the divorce attorney is an interesting play. I think that's a very interesting play. When someone's in your life that long, I mean, they've really embedded themselves in your life. And for them to walk out like that is just crazy in the first place. Yeah. It's just absolutely, it's unacceptable. Yeah, I think that's sound advice. Chris.
Yeah. And I still have a little bit more. So ideally, if you do decide to sell the house and the real estate agent thinks it's a good time and whatnot, if this house does cover your mortgage balance, that's great. And any leftover profits you can take can be put towards your debt and or your emergency fund to be able to help to build up another new financial foundation. An alternative, though, to buying the house, to selling the house, though, could be that you consider renting the house maybe at market cost in order to cover the mortgage, or bring in a tenant that can live with you in the house, because there used to be two of you in there. Now there's only one. That could be a thing. Now I don't know how bad the cost of maintenance is and the cost of what the repairs need to be. I mean, I don't know if your house is like a crack house and we're trying to bring people in and like pay them, like charge them a mortgage. But if you're living there and you've been there for 12 or for multiple years, I'm sure it's well enough that people can live in it. So that could definitely be an option. You just have to really factor in the cost of the maintenance and maybe property management if that's something that you're considering doing.
Oh, 100%.
I know they said that if worse come to worse, they have a place to go. So I'm going to take that as they have the ability to consider to move in with friends or family, or they have some other sort of low cost option to move into if they were to sell the house. And I think that's a really good option because it could extremely reduce the financial load that you're feeling. Like $1,800 a month is going to the mortgage.
Yeah.
That $1,800 would free up a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's the difference between you making double payments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you do decide that to go that option, like we really need to make sure that we're paying down the debt strategically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, based on what you said, you're making $4,000 a month, and I'm sure that's after taxes. So you're probably making like 60, 70. I don't think it's worth declaring bankruptcy when your debt is less than your, normal annual income. Like, is it going to be tight for a year? Yeah, but you could pay it off in a year if you really got tight and like made it work out. So if you're going to go ahead and pay down the debt, I would look at maybe making a payment plan, a debt consolidation loan, talk with the creditors and see if they can reduce the interest payments or anything like that, maybe a balance transfer. And remember the ways you pay off debt, and that's going to be either the debt snowball, the debt avalanche, or the hybrid method. If you don't know those means, you can Google it, or you can go back and listen to some of our episodes. We're kind of over time, so I don't want to go too deep into those things. But after you get through this debt, I want you to focus on creating a long-term plan and just stay committed to the process.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let this thing that happened to you, don't let the decisions of putting all the bills in your name, of keep taking everything out, of being left by your partner, define who you are. Be a goldfish. Let that stuff pass by. Goldfish is the happiest animal in the world because they only have a memory of 6 seconds or 10 seconds. So it goes away, and now it's me. It's new me, and I just have to. I'm dealing with whatever the situation is. So be like that. Define your financial milestones. Say, like, right now my debt's 40,000. My goal is to get to 30,000 in debt. Celebrate. 20,000. Celebrate. 10. Celebrate. 0 debt. 0 net worth. Celebrate. And then start building it the opposite way and start building up that net worth. This is a time where you need friends, you need family, you need to have people in your life that are there cheering you on, not tearing you down. Because you got left, it hurts. And right now in that hurt, you're trying to make quick decisions that probably aren't the best for you. So in short, I would cover your essentials first. personally, based off what you said and based off what Dominic said, when it comes towards just the thought of being in a house that I purchased with somebody who was there and then left me, it may be worth looking at unloading the house and eliminating that financial and mental burden that you have on yourself. And if you do that, obviously, before you do that, please consult with a real estate agent, consult with a divorce attorney, do all these things first. But if you do that and you have proceeds left, use that proceeds to tackle those high interest debts, to rebuild your credit slowly over time, to create an emergency fund. This is going to take a long time. This is not going to be a short term, I'm here to there. But eventually, in 20, 30 years, maybe you'll be able to look back at this time and be like, thank God I went through that because it led me to where I am now.
True.
And I know it's hard because you're in it right now and it sucks. I get it. But this is the mountain you're climbing. And when you get to the top, you're going to be able to see that beautiful view.
Well, with that being said, I hope you have the best of luck with your situation. I have no doubt that you'll get through it. And since you've gotten through everything else you've ever had to get through before, it's just tough. It's a tough situation, but saying it's tough doesn't get us any closer to the finish line. So buckle in and let's get through it as quickly as we can and as correctly as we can. So best of luck.
I always like to think of the Jocko Willing, just prioritize and execute. Yeah. That's all you can do. Prioritize, execute over and over and over again until you reach the goal that you had, and then you set a new goal and you keep moving forward. But big hugs from Arizona. Please keep us informed. Let us know what's going on in your life. We believe in you and we're here for you. Know that you're not in this alone. We may not physically be where you are. We don't even know your name, right? I guess we do have your email address, but we're there for you. And I know that there's people physically in your life that are there for you too, especially if you have a place to go. So lean on them.
100%. That being said, best of luck with you. And we'll be getting on to our next segment called Win of the Week. Pretty self-explanatory, called Win of the Week. This is where we share our Win of the Week. And that's the last time I'll say that. Chris, what's your Win of the Week?
So,
I said it again, damn it.
Oh, no.
No, cancel, end the pod.
Bye, guys. No. Later. So for me, jiu-jitsu gis are pretty expensive to buy. The Gracie Barra, like official jiu-jitsu gi, they're like $130, $180 if you like the nice ones, because they're pretty thick, and unfortunately they're like Gracie Barra like logoed up, so they charge a premium on all that stuff.
And that's like the outfit, correct?
You have to wear them if you're gonna train no gi, then you can just wear a rash guard and shorts. But if you're gonna train gi, you have to wear a gi. You're not just gonna show up and like, here's my sweater. Let's do it, because it's not gonna work out this well.
Yeah,
let us duel. So I have a few gis, but every so often they rip, they tear, and they have to go in the trash. So I've been sitting on just a couple of gis left, so I'm having to wash them more often. And like I was waiting for Christmas to ask for a new gi from my wife. But now I don't have to, because one of my students actually gifted me one of his gently used gis because it was too small for him. And he was like, hey, this actually looks like your size. Do you want this? I can't really fit this one. It's one I bought a new one. And you've taught me so much. Do you want this gi? And I was like, yeah, I'll take the gi. So thanks to my boy John for providing me with his gi. I will be using it. It's all nice and clean and white because it's so like nice and used. So I'm very happy with my new gi. I just saved myself like $130 because John's a cool person. So thank you very much.
Big shout out to John. Big shout out indeed. That's awesome. That's a good win of the week. That's a good, that's a pretty good win of the week. So I've got a win of the week as well, and I'm going to try my best to stop saying it, but I finally picked a color for the cabinets in the kitchen. I had it down to about 2, and then, you walk into Sherwin-Williams and I got about 8,000 colors. So I ended up coming home with 3 samples, 3 sample courts, and I painted 3 different swatches on the cabinets. I think I have it narrowed down to, okay, the first pick was pewter green. If you guys want to go check that out, if you guys are visual, you guys can go look that up. Pewter green on Sherwin-Williams. And then the other one was succulent, kind of a weird word, succulent, not a word I like repeating. And then the other one was basil, right? I think we're going to end up going with pewter green. So I'm really excited about that. But we got a long process ahead of us. Very long process ahead of us. Oh, man. Not looking forward to it. But I kind of am, because I enjoy painting. But that's my win of the week. That is my win of the week.
You got it. Prioritize, execute, stick to the process. It'll get done.
Exactly. That's it. That's it. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I'm Dom. He's Chris. And do you remember the fee for the show? It is to always tell a friend about the Five Guys because it's so much more enjoyable going with a friend than it is going alone. Because if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with a friend. That being said, thank you for stopping by. We hope to see you back here next week on the Five Guys. Peace.
Later.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.